Have you ever wondered why we love hiking? Why we voluntarily choose the mud, the cold, and the discomfort? It's because nature isn't polite. Up in the mountains at 3,000 meters, the storm doesn't give a damn about your job title. A bear doesn't care how much of a nice guy you are. Out there, your social mask, your persona, stops working. In the forest, you're forced to be who you really are, wild, a fighter, and alive. That is why we feel more at home out there than we do in a comfortable office. That is where we meet our primal self. That is where we meet our monster. But the problem starts when you come down from the mountain and return to the asphalt. As soon as we get back to the city, we lock that monster back in the basement and put the mask back on. What we need to talk about now isn't trendy. It isn't what people want to hear. It is what people need, but are afraid to admit. Let's talk about what society hides behind a beautiful facade. Let's be honest. You think you're a good person. You pay your taxes, you smile at your coworkers, you're not late for work. You think that is morality. But the truth is, you don't know if you're kind. You just haven't been tested yet. It's easy to be kind when the AC is running and your belly is full. But what happens when you're under pressure? What happens when someone touches what belongs to you? That is where you see a person's face. And most of us will discover that what we thought was kindness was actually just weakness and a fear of conflict. Or worse, wild, untamed aggression. Let's look at a rabbit. A rabbit is the most moral inhabitant of the forest, right? It doesn't attack anyone. It doesn't take territory. It isn't aggressive. But let's be honest, a rabbit isn't a pacifist because it has high moral values. A rabbit is a pacifist because it's food. If it had wolf teeth and bear claws, believe me, the political situation in the forest would be very different. You, and probably 90% of people, are exactly like that. You aren't virtuous because you don't hurt anyone. You don't hurt anyone because you don't have teeth. You're just afraid. You're afraid of conflict, afraid of a loud word, afraid that someone won't like you. If someone gets offended, you prefer to push yourself into the background again. And you call this fear politeness. That is the same as sitting in prison and bragging that you don't leave the house because you're a family man. No, brother, you just have bars on your windows. Today, we won't talk about positive vibes and how to smile at the world. Today, we have to go down into the basement, into that dark, damp basement of your psyche where you locked away everything real you ever had. Psychologists like Carl Jung call this the shadow. I call it the only place where a spark of courage still remains in you. Let's remember how it all started. Remember childhood? When you were little, you were a force of nature. When you wanted something, you screamed. When you were mad, you bit. You were selfish, kind, greedy, yielding, and at the same time, full of life. You were full of energy. Then came the upbringing. Parents, kindergarten teachers, schools, and finally, corporate culture took a big pair of scissors and started cutting you out. Don't yell. That's rude. Don't be aggressive. That's toxic. Don't ask for more. Be satisfied with what you have. What did you get as a result? At age 30, you became a human-shaped Toyota Prius. You are economical, safe, eco-friendly. You don't bother anyone, but nobody cares about you either. You're a walking compromise. But here's the main question. Where did that energy go? Where did that childhood aggression go? Where did the desire to dominate go? Where did your passions go? It's a law of physics. Energy doesn't disappear. We simply shoved it and locked it in the basement, pushed against the door with all our might, and put a big padlock on the outside that says polite citizen. And do you know what's happening in that basement? It's a mess. You think that if you hide aggression, it disappears. No, it rots. It turns into neurosis, depression, and passive aggression. Do you know what passive aggression is? It's when you tell your wife or husband, "No, honey, I'm not offended," while closing the cabinet door so hard you almost rip the hinges off. That is your shadow leaking through the door. The biggest lie ever told is that the shadow is evil. Folks, the shadow isn't evil. The shadow is just wild fuel. Look at the people who really achieve something in this life. Businessmen, athletes, rock stars, generals. Do you think they are good boys? None of them. They just learn to manage and use their own monster. Aggression? If you leave it in the basement, it becomes violence. But if you bring it into the light, it becomes drive. It becomes the force that forces you to get up at 5 a.m. and train while your competitors are resting in a warm bed. The desire to dominate? In the basement, it's tyranny, but in the light, it's leadership. And most importantly, in that same basement, in that same garbage, you threw away your creativity too. Why? Because true art is also untamed. You can't be a little bit wild. You either are or you aren't. That's why decent guys are often so untalented. They are afraid of opening the basement door because they fear that along with the muse, the demon will come out too. Do you want to know exactly what you have locked in the basement? It's very simple. Look at the people you pathologically hate. Not the murderers and actual monsters they show on TV, but the regular types around you. We all have that one coworker. Let's call him Steve. You know who I'm talking about. Steve is 40 minutes late and doesn't even apologize. Steve spills coffee on the table and doesn't wipe it. Steve tells the boss, "You know what? I have to leave early today. It's my cat's birthday." And he leaves. And what happens? Steve gets promoted. Everyone loves Steve. Women like Steve, men like Steve. And you sit in your cube, your blood pressure is at 180, and you think, "God, how I hate Steve. He is so unethical. He is so irresponsible." Maybe, but my friend, let's be honest. You don't hate Steve. You want to be Steve. You want to go up to the boss's desk and tell him what you really think about this company. But you can't, because you're a good boy. But Steve is free. Steve has the boldness that you forbade in yourself. Your hatred is a compass. It points directly to what is in your shadow and what you need to integrate. But here is where the real danger starts. You think that if you push hard against the basement door, the monster will die. That is a stupid illusion. Nietzsche said, "If you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. If you don't manage your demons will manage you." Have you ever seen how a quiet person explodes? It's the most dangerous sight. That guy who didn't make a sound for 10 years, smiled at everyone, and wouldn't hurt a fly. One fine day, he's standing in Starbucks, and a barista tells him, "Sorry, we're out of almond milk." And suddenly, boom, this guy takes a chair and throws it at the window, screaming, shrieking, tearing his face. People are in shock. What happened to George? He was such a quiet boy. That is exactly the point. He wasn't quiet, he was suppressed. For 10 years, he was collecting anger drop by drop. And on that day, the almond milk just turned out to be the detonator. So, friends, what is the solution? Become psychopaths? Burn down the city? No, no, and no. That is the path of the weak and cowards. The solution is integration with your own bad side. Do you know what that means? That means you go down into that basement, find that monster, shake its hand, and say, "Come with me, you have to work for me." There's an old samurai proverb that I love very much. It is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. That is the full formula of integration. You must have the ability to be dangerous. You must have teeth. You must be able to say no so that nobody has a question a second time. When people feel that you can bite, but you choose not to bite, only then do you become truly kind. Only then do you have respect. People feel power. People feel when your politeness is based on choice, not fear. That is power. That is control. That is 800 horsepower rolling through the city at 60 kilometers per hour. But everyone knows what it is capable of if you step on the gas. So stop deceiving yourself. Stop being a good boy. The world doesn't need another castrated, obedient figure. The world doesn't need helpless angels. The world needs people who can be dangerous, but choose to be kind. Only that is true virtue. Don't kill your demons. If you kill them, you will take your angels with you too, because they are parts of the same engine. Meet your monster, shake its hand, and force it to work for you. And finally, one warning for those who are thinking right now. "Oh, so that means I could be a bastard and insult people." No, my friend, you didn't understand. An unleashed monster goes to prison. A tame monster goes to the top. The difference is in control. Don't be the dog off the leash. Be the master holding the chain. Bye for now.